in today's webinar, we're going to discuss a new offering from Autodesk, one of the Innovyze line of products. This is InfoDrainage. And first of all, my name is Mike Gonzalez. So we'll go into that. So, all right. So my name is Mike Gonzalez. I've been with Microdesk for almost 9 years. A lot of municipal work before that. So I've been in this for about 15 years overall. Graduated from Rutgers University in New Jersey, the degree in civil engineering. So yeah, I've been using Civil 3D, AutoCAD, InfraWorks, vehicle tracking, storm sanitary, which we'll discuss in a little bit as well, Bluebeam, and now I've been also getting into Inventor and these Innovyze products. Right, so today's agenda, we're going to go over why would we get into InfoDrainage, right? And how is it different from SSA? We'll go over some of the cool tools, like the deluge tool, which is a really neat thing. And that's kind of like, being able to kind of use InfoDrainage. If you're not really if you're not that involved maybe in completely understanding all the intricacies of design work or even Civil 3D, right? So just kind of, it's a really good entry tool to get you to design for these drainage projects, right? Also, just kind of go over a little bit of the customization. We're going to go into the product itself, look at the results, and how you can kind of bring some of this stuff into Civil 3D itself. All right, so why InfoDrainage, right? So InfoDrainage is a design tool more than just an analysis tool. It's going to run all your analysis, but the way things get laid out and the UI is very intuitive, and it gives you an idea of context and scope, right? So, and it just kind of helps you make these decisions quickly, as opposed to one of the things that SSA was really just kind of, you input the things, you already have to kind of know what you want to do before you put it in, and you don't really get a nice visual representation of anything. So it's really helpful in that regard, right? So yeah, anyone using Civil 3D can pretty easily transition into using InfoDrainage, right? And one of the really cool things about it, InfoDrainage, is that it allows you to really work with storage very well, and that's going to allow a lot of. Oh, I'm sorry. SSA is storm and sanitary analysis. It comes with Civil 3D. It's one kind of these legacy products that comes with the software. It's has like StormCAD and other some other hydrology analysis tools. So that's what storm and sanitary analysis is. It's a companion product to Civil 3D. And yeah, so one of the things here is sustainable drainage, right? So is that basically adding like a rain garden or a dry pond or like porous pavement and things like that was kind of a weird thing to kind of design just traditionally, and now this is a tool that really helps you do that, and that's kind of moving forward with green initiatives is a very handy thing to have, right? So and yeah, so the ease of use of the program allows for less experienced designers to contribute to the design, which can save a lot of time and budget, honestly. And then so you can size, analyze, and visualize an LID just kind of at one given time. So mention LID. What is an LID? It's a low impact development, right? And that's kind of one of the things that InfoDrainage is really helping with, is allowing you to reduce your runoff by, being able to use infiltration and natural infiltration sources, right? So it's kind of a newer way to approach managing your runoff, and that's kind of one of the things that's incorporated into the program, and one of the things that does so well, right? So just kind of a little bit of the comparisons of what you can do. You can really just kind of do a lot of cool things with InfoDrainage that you kind of can't do with SSA, right? And that's kind of looking at your overland flow. Like this deluge tool is fantastic. You can kind of visualize in 3D the storage components that you're creating, right? And then you can bring all of your analysis and all of your design directly into Civil 3D. Whereas really, all you can do is just export the storm sewers from storm and sanitary analysis, and then bring that into Civil 3D. And that's kind of not exactly entirely what you're looking for, right? And the user interface is far easier to get into. And so let me go ahead and jump right into the product, okay? And so I have a couple scenarios here. And so now the first thing that you can notice, right, is that we have the ribbon structure, and the ribbon structure is far easier now. Everything has the ribbon, easier to navigate, things like that. So, and it's kind of meant to kind of go from left to right, right? So you can actually have a couple different phases and compare your phases, as opposed to just having one, just kind of, this is set, and then we just kind of jot down what the outflow is, and then we just kind of do something else, change our inflows, and then run it again and be like, oh, well, does it compare? You kind of have to do that externally. Now you can just kind of compare inside the program, which is fantastic, right? So you can kind of create your own phases, and in the tree view over here, just kind of see all the different you can turn stuff on and off very easily, right? Just very, very easy controls. So we already have this existing conditions. I've imported into our existing phase here. We have a CAD background, right? And you can just kind of link a CAD background. And you can also link a Civil 3D background, so long as your Civil 3D objects have a proxy graphics showing, right? They'll be displayed, right? So if you have a corridor or something like that, it'll show up in the background image here. Right, but here we have some lots and their building outlines, just to kind of give us an idea of what's going on here. We have an existing surface, which was brought in, and there's lots of different ways. Oh, and the background imagery, right? So so long as the projections are all set up correctly, right, everything's going to fall right into place. Okay, and we set up this little area here. So this is our catchment, or this is our inflow area, just to kind of see what we got working, right? So you can kind of select this, right, and that you can create these very easily. It's by catchment area, right? So this is a, so you just kind of drag and drop, and then you just, from your toolbox, and you can drag and drop any of these tools. So right now this is an inflow. So right now this is a urban residential existing area, right? And we can kind of see what that means in here. Very, very simple. Just gives us total area. You can change that. You can calculate it very easily, just kind of see what kind of sort of land use it is, right? What sort of slope it is, and it's kind of, it'll give you the runoff coefficient if that's what you want, right? So you can always calculate that stuff, right? Calculate the time of concentration, choose your runoff method for this inflow area, and just, pretty much just kind of set that up. Then one of the neat things about this too is that if you make changes to this, right, and you decide to call it something else, you make changes to it, you can always just, once you've made changes to that, you can right click and you can add it to a template, so you can reuse it later, which, it's a super handy thing. So you're not just constantly reworking, right? So one of the cool things about InfoDrainage is that you can actually save any kind of changes that you make, add it as a template, and it'll add it to your toolbox here, and that gets saved as a file externally, right? That you can actually load up with your object templates, right? So you can reuse your inflows, your junctions, your stormwater control structures and areas, right? You can kind of make customizations to them, save them to your tool chest, or your toolbox rather, and you can reuse them on any other project, right? Same thing goes with your rainfalls, right? So I can go to my rainfall manager. I have one in here, right? Just kind of designed, and just kind of filled in there, but you can bring them in from IDF curves or any other way, right? It's lots of very easy way to bring in your different rainfalls. You can import them, export them, right? So all that good stuff. But all this stuff can actually get saved if you save as a project template, and you could start a new project using the same project template, and that's going to allow you to very quickly just kind of get to your next project when you're going to be using the same. So if you work in the same area all the time, it makes sense to use a similar rainfall and stuff that you're doing, right? So it's just good to reuse and customize. Hey, you can even change the icon if you change some settings within your inflow area or anything else, right? So you can change the icons, you can do all that stuff, right? And just kind of customize it and add it to your toolbox, which is really neat, right? So I also find that I like the big icons that are very colorful. It's a little bit of a change of pace from everything that's just stark and gray. So I like it, but just right here, you can choose to display or not display things in a particular phase, right? And you can choose to, that's with the little light bulb, and then you can choose stop and go, and that's going to decide whether or not it also is part of your analysis when you run that, right? So then you can choose, so basically you're setting yourself up just kind of what do you want to see in your plan, right? What are we looking at, right? How do you want to view extents? You can add bookmarks to different zoom areas and things like that. You can also snap, right? So you can actually snap to the CAD backgrounds, which is really neat. Okay, and then with the inputs for the particular phase that you're in, and you can make multiple phases, right? Just by right-clicking, you can add a storm phase or add a sewer phase or something like that. Right, and you can bring in all the things that you want to that phase. Again, you can bring in surface data, CAD data, just like a CAD background, GIS data like shapefiles or a geodatabase, or an image, right? And you can bring that all in. You can bring in a pipe network from Civil 3D if you export to land XML, right? All these other things from CAD, right? Pipe networks from Civil 3D, right? From GIS, right? So just kind of, you can just kind of predefine things as you bring them in, right? So let's say you have a GIS file that has pipes, right? You can bring that in from your GIS via connections, right? Bring it in from a shapefile, geodatabase, right? And just kind of, then you just map it once you bring it in, right? So it's very, very easy to get into, right? Again, set your rainfalls, very easy to do. You can choose how you want to analyze things, right? So you can go by the, and this is just kind of for your preliminary sizing for your piping, right? So that's static sizing, right? So you go through a rational method and set that all up if you'd like, right? So pretty neat stuff, right? Then this is the build, and that's when you're kind of adding your different areas, right? So you can add an inflow area, a junction, stormwater control area. You can add a network of pipes, right? It's all very, very accessible with the ribbon, okay? And then after that, you can run your analysis criteria. How do you want to run your analysis? Dynamic, right? And just got to make sure that it matches the type of the runoff type as is on your inflows, and you're good to go. So you can choose your different storm that you've assigned in your rainfall, and then just run with that, right? Another really cool thing is that when you run the validate, it's going to see whether your analysis is going to work, and if it doesn't, if right now it says okay, but when there's errors or something like that, it's actually going to give you options to fix it directly within here, as opposed to you having to run it, go and look at like a text log file, and then see like, okay, one pipe just doesn't work, and you're not really sure why. But this actually gives you solutions within the program. Just boom, right here, you can fix it. Right? So this is just kind of the existing conditions. Let me go show you how easy it is to just kind of run a couple things, right? So one of the fun things that's available here, right, is this deluge tool. And if you're not familiar with Civil 3D and you don't want to go into surfaces and all that stuff, the deluge tool is fantastic, right? You can just kind of choose what sort of mannings, is it rural, is it mixed, is it urban, right? What's your minimum element area, and really that's just what size of mesh. So I'm going to go just make it fairly large so we can do this quickly. So 35, right? Right, it's going to build a mesh, and it's going to tell us kind of where the low points are, right? Just like very easily, and that's just kind of a really great way to start your design process, right? So we're just on our existing, right? We can look at the pretty quick. Right. And so you can see these depression hotspots, right? So you can kind of see little legend right there. All right. So the blue is a little bit higher, right? The greens are a little bit lower, right? So now that just tells us, if we're going to be working in this area, well, what's happening, right? So these are kind of lower areas. So that means that, there's going to be ponding and things there. So we can take care of that, right? So also, right, you can actually kind of expand this and just kind of right click on it and check out the display options. Be like, okay, well, maybe what I want to see is the flow direction as well, right? So I want to see where everything's flowing, right? So you can just kind of right click on display options for really any one of these things, and it'll take you to this display settings. You can just kind of choose what everything looks like. Again, I like things to be nice and colorful, so this really suits me. But yeah, you can just look at the little flow arrows as you zoom in. You're like, okay, things are going in this direction, kind of going over here, right? Following that, right? So it really just kind of gives you a good idea of what you can do, right? So let's say I wanted to start maybe developing this. So I can go ahead and just create. So let's say I wanted to keep all the backgrounds and all that good stuff, right? I could just duplicate the phase or make it a new phase, right? So if I duplicate the phase, I'll keep all the things that are linked, right? I can just go ahead and duplicate that phase, rename that, right? Okay. So I'm in this current phase, right? So I can go ahead and rename this, right? I can change its options, right? So maybe now change my runoff coefficient, right? So maybe something else. So whatever I wanted to find it. So if I just want to use one of these guys, I can totally do that. Or if I could just, just say like it's 0.7, right? And, I can keep my same runoff method, all that good stuff, right? So really just kind of, you just update this area for what you want it to be, right? And then you can start adding your things, right? So let's say I wanted to add a network and just kind of a pipe network, and I wanted to go from, so I know it was kind of low over here, so just kind of draw it in, draw it in. And so it's already connecting. And so, I can just start adding stormwater controls or things like that, right? So one of the cool things also is that you get a good idea of some of your stormwater controls, right? So maybe you want to collect, from something like a rain garden or something in here, right? So I can just drag and drop that into here, just kind of draw it out, right? And you see I can snap, so I can actually draw this in a CAD background if I wanted to, but just, right, something like that, and you can kind of go right into it. And then you can kind of start sizing it however you want, right? So what are you trying to do? Are you trying to reduce the runoff volume? Just kind of, all these tools help you. Well, we got a lot of stuff to do, but we got to connect it to the inflow and stuff like that. But yeah, it's really easy to just kind of create these things, right? You choose, how deep do you want your filtration layers, right? Like you can add an inlet, things like that, right? So of course, it takes a little bit of time to add all this stuff, but it's very easy and straightforward to do. And again, once you've done it, you can add it to your tool chest, your toolbox rather, right? Right, and you can connect outfalls into here and connect them into your network of pipes that you can already see where they're going in the right direction, right? And you got a little dry pond over here. So just for the sake of time, I have a completed one over here, right? And so I have a bypass, overland bypass into this rain garden, right? I have all these pipes and I have a dry pond over here. Oh, actually, one thing I wanted to go over, beg your pardon, is just, for example, if I drew in these chambers, right, these storage chambers, I'm just gonna throw them in here. Oh, whoops. So just for example, right? If I threw those in there, right? You just get a nice visual representation of what they are already. You can edit their number, their sizing, right? What's their dimensions, the number of chambers, how many rows, the distance between rows, all that good stuff, right? So all the stuff that exists, you can just kind of start putting that in. So, maybe it's 5 rows, right? And so with this size chamber, you just kind of get all the information already, and it's going to already be set up, right? So you can just quickly set that up. What sort of chamber is it? Box culvert chamber, right? What's the wall thick? So you kind of just set these things up, set the exceedance levels, basically, and then you can set up your outlets, right? Do you have orifices? What do you want to do? You can just add that quickly in there, right? And then, and one of the neat things is not only do you just see it in 2D, but you can also see it in 3D. Right, so there's your surface, right? We have our area there. Right, so there's our rain garden, there's our pipes. I mean, we didn't really do much to it, but it's they're already set up, preliminary design already good to go, right? So yeah, it's very easy. And then if you wanted to, you can just kind of in your plan, you can actually set a view bookmark here, right? If that's what you wanted to come back to, and you make changes, you might come back here to your bookmark, right? And you just kind of save your visual, right? So just kind of a super handy thing that you're able to do. Oh, yes, because I'm in my developed storm. Yeah, and a nice little thing too is that you can show the little preview image. It kind of tells you exactly what it is that's going on. Right. So you can, with all the different values, it kind of gives you an idea of what you're actually making. Just a really handy thing. So yeah, basically make it as big as you need to, right? And it'll display, right? So like as I do it, right? So let's say it's 40 chambers, right? And so dynamically it changes the outline and all that stuff, right? So really, yeah, you can just kind of use this to kind of give you an idea of like what exactly you're actually putting in there, and then B, just kind of already you're getting a nice outline of it. Just kind of gives you a good representation of what's happening, right? Same thing with your rain garden, you just kind of see it in 3D, just kind of and how things connect and things like that. Once you start connecting things, right? So let's go ahead and look at the other one. It's here, right? So I can look at this one in 3D, right? I have a little dry pond, right, with connected pipes. Yeah, so you can kind of see a little bit wonky to visualize here. I'm not used to the rotation aspect of it yet, but there it is. Right, so you can see our bypass, our trapezoidal bypass is going right over there. We have an under drain going here, kind of connects into it. It goes in, now falls into our dry pond area over here, right? So it's nice to be able to just kind of see that and understand your system than just seeing lines and dots, especially with the storage nodes, right? And storm and sanitary analysis, you just get a node, just a little circle that you have to just kind of, you have to see it in your mind. right, before anything else. But at least you get an outline here. You can do see a 3D representation of it, and it works beautifully. All right, so once you've got your different phases, right, you can run different analyses on these, right? Check your analysis criteria, choose what type of rainfall, right? Is it dynamic or is it static? Right? So you choose that one right there. That's our rainfall that we brought in earlier, right? All right, that's your runtime, the number of storms, right? You can see all that stuff. So go ahead and validate it, see if if your system works, right? Now just go ahead and run an analysis. It's pretty quick. Okay, all right, so you can see, we have just for our stormwater control areas, right, the dry pond. So that's what opened up first. And so we can see, kind of you can look at it by critical storm, right? And so it can tell you which storm is the problem, the 100-year storm is the problem, right? Or by return period, right? So which return period is going to be a problem. Or you can uncheck that and just kind of see the different ones, right? So another neat thing, right, is that whenever you create things, you can create different flow paths, right? So this is going from the rain garden to the dry pond from the under drain, right? So I can go ahead, right, and show that in profile, right? And now that I've run the analysis, right, you can just play the analysis very easily. Right, and but the thing is that right now we're looking for, we have all these different storms, right? So this is the 2-year storm, so we can run that, and it just kind of runs it for all the storms, right? So kind of see how this is just kind of playing out there, right? So it starts from the rain garden, right? Fills up, right? And how does that affect the dry pond, right? The dry pond starts to infiltrate, right? So you can kind of set all your infiltration of these things very easily. So just for example, I select my dry pond, edit, I can set my you can do a sizing calculator as well, see what side slope you want. Like how, on the bottom, what's the infiltration rate, right? Do you want to infiltrate on the side? All this or the other cool stuff. And again, you can add a bunch of different outlets, right? So we have like a couple of different outfalls here, So just there's a lot of different things you could do. Just kind of set that up. And again, you can templatize it, right? So you can use it over and over and over again, which is pretty neat. So you can just kind of go through your different storms and you can kind of see, like right here, now these 2 pipes are surcharged, right? They're like, right? So it's just like a nice visual that you can do as well. And just kind of, so if you run your analysis with all your storms, right, you can just kind of go and see which storm is causing what. And so whichever one is current, right, you can just go and see your different profiles, and I'll just play it right through, right? So this is where you can set which storm you're actually looking at, and that'll just, a really nice visual, right? Another neat thing that you can also do is that you can actually, whenever you generate these, you can actually create different flow paths, right? So I have my bypass, right, which was connected from a weir going out, right? So look at that in profile as well, right? As opposed to the under drain. Let's go to a more normal storm there. Yeah, so that fills up and then it goes over, right? So right, so there's lots of really cool ways that you can do this. You can see it, you can add a lot of different options, right? And yeah, just kind of really get some nice visuals. I think it's a really easy way to dip your toe into drainage analysis. And again, you can turn stuff on and off very, very easily. A lot of options. Right? You can look at your reports. You can look at comparison reports. You can compare different phases, right? Of different things, right? So choose which storm you want. Right, you can always just kind of spit these out. So save these or print these or copy them and put them somewhere else, right? So you just have all these different types of reports that you can create very simply, and I think it's a pretty intuitive way to get into it. Right? So yeah, you can see what's going on with your manhole, that particular manhole, right? Just kind of see what's going on, right, for this particular storm that we have set, right? So very easy, very cool, and just kind of. So really just kind of wanted to show you guys what it looked like. I think it's very approachable. It's very easy to set it up, right? Because you just import your data just from this one tab into your different phases that you can create. Again, set your rainfall, right? Just kind of preliminarily set a couple things, right? And then you can go ahead, add your different control structures and your different pipes and connect things very easily. And then you just run your analysis, and then you can see your results, and then you can export it, right? So the ribbon is just kind of set to that very easy workflow, and it's kind of made right for you, right? So one thing I do want to show you guys real quick is that it's so easy to just import this into Civil 3D via the InfoDrainage tab, and that's if you have the Ultimate license. You can do that. You can import directly from InfoDrainage. Okay, so I can select my file, right? So it's an IDDX file. That's the InfoDrainage file. Okay, I could choose which phase. I just want to bring in my development phase, right? So I can bring in the surface. So I can either create a surface or use an existing Civil 3D, or I can bring that in from the phase, right? So. And then I can choose, how do I want to map these things, right? So I have a couple different pipe types. So corrugated so for that 4-inch size for that under drain, right? You can do that. And really just choose which parts list you're creating. So the ultimate licensing, I had a question there. That is, so there's the standard and then the ultimate license for InfoDrainage itself, right? So this will just be the moment you install InfoDrainage with the ultimate license, you'll have the InfoDrainage tab in Civil 3D, right? It's just regular Civil 3D. And so far it works with 2022 and 2023, right? The InfoDrainage tab. Right, and then you can see here the trapezoidal bypass channel that we had in there. That's actually going to come in as a corridor, which is pretty neat, right? So you just map, you have your parts list, and you can just kind of map which part goes with what family and what size, right? And we can go, that's our connections. We can go to our junctions, which would be our manholes, circular manhole, right? Concentric cylindrical structure, 72-inch diameter, right? That's fine. Right, so finish that. Okay. There's our catchment, right? The entire catchment. All right, here's a little surface that got created, right? And then also a little surface for our rain garden, little surface for our dry pond, right? And then these are just Civil 3D objects, right? They're They're just our pipes, right? So you can look at it, look at the whole thing. So there's our under drain going into the filter, right? Of course, and then of course aggregate filter, and then there's our bypass, right? Going into the manhole. I forgot to select the manhole. Probably should have made that an inlet. But yeah, make a little catch basin, right? So yeah, very easy import, and then you could also export a Civil 3D drawing directly into InfoDrainage as well, right? So if you got started, or if you did a bunch of different things in here, you can bring that directly into InfoDrainage, right? So a nice little back and forth there. You can also change your mapping however you need to, right? So change your parts list or whatever you got to do, right? So anyway, that's kind of just what I wanted to show you, just kind of get you guys understanding kind of what it does, how it's a little bit different. And really, for me, it's the interface and this and kind of all these green storage options, right? Your infiltration options, right? Because porous pavement, right? All that good stuff. Really just kind of frustrating thing to kind of wrap your head around when you're not when you don't have it like available as to just be able to connect it to your system. You have to just kind of design it on your own, mathematically, right? So that's kind of a really handy thing to have, and also within here, I mean, you can do, different areas, right? So you can have for your inflows, you can actually add green roofs, and you can add like rain barrels and stuff like that, like all these really cool things that you can do directly within the program that takes all of that into account when you're running your analysis, right? So you actually get a real some real value out of that, right? Some real information, as opposed to just kind of after the fact being like, well, if we store some, stuff in rain barrels, we'll kind of get rid of this much, and just kind of tacking it on at the end, as opposed to it being part of your, actual reporting, right? So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to show you guys. Any questions?